Hi, my name is Thomas Lassourd from the Natural Resource Governance Institute, and I'm here with Dr. Carole Nakhle from Crystal Energy. Today we're going to talk about how the drop in commodity prices, especially oil prices, is impacting fiscal regimes and contract terms, and especially in the Middle East and North Africa region. So, Dr. Nakhle, in your experience, have you seen any impact from the drop in oil prices on contractual and fiscal terms?
It's not just the drop in the oil prices has impacted fiscal terms. It's any changes in oil prices traditionally has led to some response from governments around the world. So when the oil prices go up, governments usually tend to tighten their fiscal terms, and when the oil price fall, they tend to relax their fiscal terms. And this is exactly what we are seeing today. We saw countries across the world, and especially in the developing world and in the developed countries as well, like here in the UK. But we saw a trend, for example, let me give from the MENA. Algeria, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, although Iran we still have to wait and see what they are going to offer. They promise they will be offering more attractive fiscal terms. So they all have introduced legislative changes. In Iraq, for instance, they are renegotiating the contracts even though they had very strong attitude in 2009 and 2010 where they were offering the companies one option, take it or leave it. So we are seeing that. Now, of course, this is not necessarily just a reaction to the changes in the oil price, but the changes in the oil price have shed the light on fundamental problems that were already in those countries. So if you look at Algeria, for instance, they were already suffering from a decline in both investment and production. Iraq, the same, has been struggling to keep companies interested. Iran, of course, we have the sanctions, but attracting more investments is a problem. Egypt had its own problems. And these are not the only countries in the world. We saw in Latin America a similar attitude. So that's the kind of trend we are seeing today. But I would like to highlight one issue. Today, yes, when we talk about a fall in the oil price, we tend to think that the oil price is really low. But $60 a barrel is not really low. But if you are having a problem as a country at $60 a barrel, then you may have some problems elsewhere.
And so it seems to be that there is some kind of a race to attract investment. Does this mean that at the regional level, are we seeing a so-called race to the bottom, countries competing with each other by decreasing their tax rates in order to attract investors?
What we normally see in terms of competition to attract investors, we see countries, they always look at their neighbors, what kind of contracts they are offering, what kind of fiscal terms they have, and they always tell investors, look, I am offering you this much better than my neighbor. So this is the kind of a general trend that we see, but there are big differences as well. So you can have in Europe, the UK and Norway, they have completely different attitude to investment. One has one of the most stable regimes in the world, that is Norway. The other one has one of the most unstable regimes in the world, that is the UK. Look at the US and Mexico. Also, they share the same sea, but they have completely different attitude to investment. So yes, countries do look at their neighbors, but the mistake is when they just see what their neighbor has done, copy and paste in their own country. Why it's a mistake? Because each country has different conditions, not only geology, but also in terms of economic conditions, in terms of objectives. So all these should be taken into consideration to design a properly tailored, functioning and sustainable fiscal regime.
Dr. Nakhle, in your experience, what would you recommend for governments in terms of negotiating oil and gas contracts?
Yeah, well, let me focus on the fiscal regime in terms of what is the best practice, whether you should negotiate the terms or not, or fix them in the law or in the model agreement, so make them transparent. From my experience, I think governments get a better outcome when they avoid these one-to-one negotiations, especially if they don't publish the contracts. So that will allow them, if they have standard fiscal regime. Now, of course, you do have occasionally some terms like the signature bonus, they can be biddable, or you can negotiate them so they can vary from one contract to the other. But the overall fiscal package and the other more important fiscal terms, I prefer to see them fixed and to have them transparent and standardized on everyone who come to invest in the country. Because if you do otherwise, if you try to negotiate for each contract, for each project, what do you end up with? You end up with completely different arrangements for each contract that will make it, first of all, very burdensome, administratively speaking, and this is a problem in countries where you have limited administrative capacity. You also have, it's very difficult for you to compare. Am I getting a good deal here or am I getting a better deal there? It's not just about the government take. The government take is one measure we use, but it's about when the revenues start to be generated and how they behave under different oil price scenarios, different cost scenarios, etc. So that's usually the recommendation I would go for. Keep the fiscal system as simple as possible, but as robust as possible, and make it transparent so that we know whether you are getting a fair share of the revenues or not. When it comes to fiscal regimes, there is no such a thing as an ideal fiscal regime. What we do, we follow certain principles. So the fiscal regime should be the simplicity should be respected. Link to profitability should also be encouraged. Avoid all these, tinkering here and there. And you'd be amazed, like when you link the fiscal regime mainly to profitability, it will adjust automatically to any condition, like changes in oil prices or changes in cost, rather than continuously making those adjustments manually, which, as we said earlier, is going to simply complicate your system.
Right, that was illuminating. Thank you so much, Dr. Nakhle.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you again.